Breaking down the conference championship games this weekend with Steve Helwig from Hustle Belt and Underdog Dynasty. Catch his work on SB Nation. Steve will be at the American Conference Championship game, Cincinnati and Houston, covering that. Steve, we go to the Sun Belt, and not an unfamiliar matchup or unexpected matchup here with Appalachian State, of course, a fixture in the conference championship game. Billy Napier coaching his last game at Louisiana.
Yes, Napier hasn't determined if he's going to coach the bowl game yet, but even though he's headed to Florida, he is committed to coaching this game. Could be a little bit of a distraction. We've seen some coaches on their way out or already hired coach games like this before. Scott Frost was hired by Nebraska the day that UCF won the 2017 AAC championship game. So there have been games like this before, and teams have been able to overcome that distraction. So that's an interesting thing about Louisiana. The Cajuns right now, they've won 11 straight games ever since that opening loss to Texas, a loss where now if you look at Texas this season, you're thinking that Louisiana kind of blew an opportunity there. But the Cajuns, they haven't really won their games by the closest margins, but they've got things done. And the best example of them getting it done was against App State this year on a midweek game earlier in, I think it was October. Louisiana beat App State 41-13, and they really exposed App State by getting 4 turnovers in that game. And also the defense just shut down the Mountaineers. They held them to 0 of 11 on third downs, and App State wasn't able to get anything going in the run game, held to under 3 yards per carry and under 80 yards rushing. So Louisiana's defense really stepped up to the occasion that night to produce a blowout win. And App State wasn't really used to blowouts, and App State has not lost since that outing. And App State has looked incredible since that game. The following week, they beat Coastal Carolina, stormed the field on a Wednesday night in Boone. And ever since that close win over Coastal Carolina, App State's done nothing but throttle their competition. They have wins by 31 points, 24 points, 24, 38, and 24 to close their season. Yes, the last 5 teams that they played were the 5 worst teams in the Sun Belt. But App State has done a really good job recovering from that Louisiana loss, and their defense has been incredible recently. They've only given up 17 points in the last 3 games, and the Mountaineers, they're a team that's just well coached. It's a machine. They had Scott Satterfield, they had Eli Drinkwitz, now they have Sean Clark, and they're still the same competitive team year in and year out. So it's going to be an interesting matchup against Louisiana, where I think App State's actually favored despite the result of last game that happened in Lafayette. So that's definitely an interesting dynamic. I think Billy Napier's departure factors into that. And this will be the 11th matchup between these two teams in the college football playoff era. There's no other matchup in college football that has happened more times since 2014 than App State and Louisiana. So these teams are pretty familiar with each other by now.
Steve, I've been all over the place trying to figure out where this game is played. At first, I thought it was going to be played at Louisiana. Do we know the site of this game?
Yes, the Sun Belt Championship game occurs at the higher ranked team or the team with a better conference record. So Louisiana's 8-0 in conference play, and they're going to be hosting at Cajun Field. It's one of 4 conference championship games, along with the CUSA, the Mountain West, and the AAC, to be played at the site of the higher ranked team.
Yes, without the Pac-12 championship game for the first time going to a neutral site. That's what I thought, but I was searching all over the place. And as soon as you had mentioned that Louisiana was a underdog at the game, I thought, my goodness, are they an underdog at home?
Yes.
And so I was just confirming that. Wow. Okay. Very good. Got a read on this one. Louisiana and Appalachian State could be the best of the group of 5 championship games, possibly.
It could be. I think that App State, just the way that they've been playing football recently, I know it's against weaker competition. And then the Napier factor, a lot of players might go into this game with a little different mindset, knowing it's their coach's last game. So it's going to be a tough one. I think this is going to be a close game, and it's going to defer a lot from the October game between these two teams. And it's hard to beat a team twice. I'm trying to think of rematches that we've seen before in conference championship games. Last year, we had Iowa State beat Oklahoma in the regular season, and Oklahoma came back and took them down in the Big 12 championship game. And sometimes even teams that have blown someone out in the regular season, it didn't always go that way in the conference championship game. One I can think of was 2017 UCF Memphis, where UCF pounded Memphis in the regular season. That game went to double overtime in the conference championship game. So I don't know if that result that we saw on a Wednesday night in October will exactly be indicative of what we see Saturday. These teams feel like they've been slightly different teams since then. Louisiana's got by a lot of close games against some not so great competition this year. They barely beat Georgia Southern. They beat South Alabama by 2. They beat Arkansas State by 1. They beat ULM by 5. And those were the teams that App State was destroying at the end of the season. So I think that I like App State in this game. The Mountaineers have a really good run game led by Nate Noel and Cameron Peoples. You might remember Peoples last year from the Myrtle Beach Bowl, where he had 317 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, which was the best bowl performance of any player in college football last year. So I think that App State's going to be able to have a little more success moving the ball on the ground this time. And then their quarterback, Chase Bryce, just has to stay a little free of the turnovers. The Clemson and Duke transfer had a rough game last time against Louisiana, but I think that if he takes care of the ball in this game, that App State's going to be able to really counter Louisiana with more effectiveness this time. And I think that they're going to be able to beat the Cajuns.
Just looking at the dynamics of a rematch in conference championship games, it's not something that's rare, but at the same time, it's somewhat unlikely, because if you just think of the math, obviously, if those two teams play during the regular season, one of them automatically has a conference loss, so that makes it difficult for that particular team to get to a division championship situation. Although, of course, in the Big 12, they all play each other, so there's always a rematch in the championship game. Oklahoma's been able to sweep a number of teams, but most notably Texas, of course, beat them in the regular season before the Sooners got them in the 2018 conference championship game. Interesting stuff. Steve Helwig, check out his work on Underdog Dynasty and Hustle Belt, breaking down the group of 5 across the board. But Steve will be at the American Conference Championship game at Cincinnati. Should be an exciting scene, knowing that a college football playoff appearance is on the line, and of course 2 high-level teams with a combined 23-1 record. Steve.
Yeah, only the SEC can claim a record that high combined between the 2 teams this year. It's 2 ranked teams in that AAC championship, and it's the highest stakes one of all time, knowing that a conference college football playoff berth is on the line. Although 2017 UCF, 2018 UCF, and 2020 Cincinnati were all undefeated, the rankings didn't position themselves in a way where those teams really had a chance of crashing the college football playoff. This Cincinnati team, it's different. They do have that chance. The only scenario with a win that I could see them maybe stuck out is if Oklahoma State beats Baylor and Alabama beats Georgia. That is where things could get a little tricky for Cincinnati, because they'll view that win over Baylor better than Cincinnati's win over Houston. But we'll have to see the games play out and what style they play out in at first. But this Cincinnati team, that Notre Dame win looks better every single week. Notre Dame's now just obliterating opponents week after week, and they're 11-1 with just 1 slip up at home against the Bearcats. And this game, Cincinnati has not lost at home since 2017. Only Clemson has a longer home streak in the country, so it's definitely going to be an intriguing atmosphere at Nippert Stadium this Saturday.
I would hate to see the situation come down to a style points comparison between most likely Oklahoma State and Cincinnati. Cincinnati, if they get past Houston, obviously undefeated. They've shown us, not that it should factor into this evaluation, but in recent years that they can play at that level, and they should be rewarded with a college football playoff appearance as an undefeated team that's won a conference. No question about that. On the same side, Oklahoma State would fall victim to something that we've rarely seen, really only twice, that a 1-loss Power 5 champion has been left out of the college football playoff, but just not necessarily enough spots this year. Steve, we appreciate you stopping by. Have a great trip to Cincinnati. Enjoy the game, and we will see you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.